Yo, you too. What's going on? It's your boy Xavier, and we back with another video. And today we got that doctor wife accused of poisoning husband's tea with Drano. Let's dive into it.
California doctor begins to have some strange symptoms. He takes it seriously. His tea tasted off, and he wonders if someone may have put something inside of it. When he places hidden cameras around the kitchen, he finds more than he bargained for. That the person attempting to poison him lives under the same roof. This is Scandal, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Sierra Gillespie. The proof's in the pudding, or in the lemon tea. At least that's what West Coast prosecutors say, that a California doctor found Drano in his lemon tea. And what's more, he caught the alleged poisoner on camera, his own wife. Prosecutors say they were amidst a messy breakup and eventual divorce that led to these shocking allegations. An alleged attempted murder, alleged coercion of children, and hidden cameras that seem to tell the entire story. Today's scandal takes us to Irvine, California, about 40 miles south of Los Angeles. Irvine is a very upscale area. According to Zillow, the median household income there is more than $2 million. With that kind of salary, you have to have a really serious job, like a lawyer, Hollywood heavyweight, or a doctor. And actually, both people involved in today's case are doctors. A once seemingly happily married couple, Dr. Jack Chen and Dr. Emily Yu. According to reports, Jack is a radiologist while Emily worked as a dermatologist. And for a time, everything seemed well with the couple. But as sometimes happens, the relationship saw some major changes. And by 2022, the couple was headed toward divorce. And it was in April of that year that Jack started to notice something off with his drinks, specifically his lemon tea. Jack later described this as a, quote, chemical taste, which is not something you'd expect to associate with lemon tea. After noticing this weird taste in some of his drinks, Jack started developing some serious health issues too, including stomach ulcers and severe internal injuries. And this went on for several months, by the way. Jack just knew something was off and started to suspect someone may be putting something in his drinks. So he decided to take matters into his own hands. Jack put some hidden cameras around his home, specifically in the kitchen, hoping to find some sign of what was happening to his tea. Upon reviewing the footage, he made a startling discovery that his wife, Emily, was allegedly poisoning his drinks. Jack's hidden cameras.
Damn. So he put hidden cameras around the kitchen and found out that the wife was poisoning his tea. Damn.
Caught this happening 3 times, on July 11th, July 18th, and July 15th of 2022, showing what appears to be Emily adding Drano drain cleaner into his tea. FBI tests later confirmed that drain cleaner was in fact present when the cups were tested.
Parents of children who play Roblox. If your child was sexually exploited, abused,
and that led to Emily Yu's arrest back in August of 2022. Jack's attorneys released some screenshots of the recordings, and that's what we've been showing you throughout this entire video. Jack's team says that Jack and Emily were going through a divorce at the time, and that was motive for Emily to want to kill Jack. She could forego the divorce and get full custody.
She wanted to kill him? And they was going through divorce? So she said she wanted to kill him? That's crazy. And she wanted to kill him by poisoning his tea?
Of their children if Jack just died. Emily was charged with poisoning and domestic battery, and according to the LA Times, lost in-person visitation rights with her children in late 2022. But as with every case, there are 2 sides to the story, and Emily's defense says she has a legit explanation for why the Drano was in the cup. She says she was trying to get rid of ants that were in the kitchen. You heard that right.
Really? How the hell you was trying to get rid of ants that was in the kitchen if the poisoning was in the tea? That shit don't make sense.
Emily says there was an ant, like insects, an ant problem in her kitchen, and she says it was Jack himself who suggested she pour some Drano into a cup with lemonade to get rid of these ants. Not that she was actually trying to poison Jack. But Jack isn't the only person who was worried about Emily allegedly poisoning them. The LA Times reports that their daughter confided in a school counselor, saying she was nervous that her mom would poison her. The daughter also told the school counselor that her mom coached her to say that she didn't want to live with her dad at all and instead wanted to be with her mom 24/7. The therapist described all of this in an affidavit. It reads in part, quote, "The daughter appeared distressed and looked tearful when she was explaining feeling conflicted about lying because if she didn't, she would make her mom angry. I asked her why she was so afraid to make her mom angry. She responded, because what if she does what she did to my dad to me? The therapist then asked, are you afraid that your mom will kill you? And the daughter replied, yes. If this story sounds kind of familiar to you, it could be because you've heard it before. All of this happened kind of a while ago. The alleged poisoning happened back in 2022, and Emily Yu was indicted by a grand jury in 2023. She was set to go to trial just a few weeks ago. But here's where the newest update comes in this case. A key witness for the prosecution wasn't able to make it to the early days of the trial, and the state was counting on that testimony. So they're dropping the charges against Emily Yu. And I know, that does sound pretty drastic. She just gets off without a trial after allegedly poisoning her husband? Well, for starters, I want to remind you, she's innocent until proven guilty. There's been no conviction here. But secondly, the district attorney says they plan to refile the case against her. It seems like that expert testimony is really important to the case, so much so that the prosecution doesn't want to go to trial without it. So for now, it seems like the charges are dropped, but they will soon be refiled, at least according to the Orange County District Attorney. I mean, there's a lot to cover in today's case, and I don't want to waste any time with it. So let's get right to our interview and bring on today's guest. It's civil rights attorney Joe Richardson out of California, where this alleged crime is said to have happened. So, Joe, thank you for coming on Scandal with us today. And let's start with the allegations. This woman is accused of poisoning her husband, and prosecutors say they've got video of all of it. I mean, right from the jump, what do you make of those allegations?
It's kind of crazy. I mean, this guy was so concerned. He felt like his tea had a little extra flavor in it, like it was taking something chemical. So he films it. He films without the wife knowing, and turns out on three occasions, she's taking Drano out from the bottom of the sink and pouring it into what became his tea. And so the idea that, I'm sure we'll get into it more, but the idea that she would have the defense that she does, most of us don't make the mistake of pouring Drano into someone's drink and it actually makes it to them where they drink it several times. So her defense is very interesting. But yeah, so, it didn't kill him. He had some physical symptoms. And he ultimately survived, but there's still charges related to what it was she was actually doing, and it ends up becoming, felonious and some very severe charges where she could get some time.
You brought up
Hey, yeah, she can get time for poisoning his tea.
very interesting here. The fact that most of us keep things like Drano or any sort of cleaners, most of the time it's under our kitchen sink, right? Because we don't want to eat it. We don't want to consume it. It's different than our pantry. So to go under the kitchen sink and grab something that has one of those, child-proof lids, because just that, it could be dangerous or toxic to a child or any sort of human. It's kind of crazy. I do want to talk about her defense, but not yet. I want to first talk about intent here, because it'd be kind of difficult to say that this was an accident, right? Especially after we're talking about the childproof lid to actually get this off. It's away from where you would likely keep your drinks or your tea because it's probably going to be under the kitchen sink. Drano clearly is usually a red bottle. It's like, watch out, don't put this in any sort of drink. What do you make of the intent aspect?
Yeah, intent is important here. And what she's got to do is she's got to demonstrate that there was no intent to do what was actually done. She's got separate things as well, but the idea that this happened on accident, this would be just a terribly, grossly negligent thing. I mean, this doesn't happen to anyone else. And it looks like, at least the allegations are, that she intended to do this because they're in a divorce. They're in a process of getting a divorce. And so, therefore, she wanted to hurt him, if not kill him. As it turns out, she couldn't kill him. But it's going to be hard, I think, for her to divorce, for lack of a better term, divorce intent from the actual act here, because something like this typically just doesn't happen by accident.
I'm so
Our best offer of the year is here. With Whoop, train smarter, sleep deeper, recover
glad that the victim in this case was able to realize several things. First of all, that something tasted off. Second of all, he's a doctor, so of course he knows to pay attention to his body. And when he starts to have symptoms, get things tested out and see, what's going on. And then to take it a step further here to actually have the hidden cameras. It's wild. And you brought up divorce in all of this because it seems that they were in the midst of separating, going through a divorce. So if I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to say, you kind of have a lot to gain here if you're breaking up with your husband and you likely want custody of the children. It would be easier, right, if he just, didn't exist anymore, if he passed away, if he died. I mean, is that something that prosecutors would highlight?
Yeah, I think so, because anytime you're bringing a criminal case, if you can, you want to be able to present a why, a WHY. You want to be able to present a motive. Here's what she's doing. Here's why she's doing it. Just in case it's unbelievable that they're doing it. So you say, well, why would somebody do that? And if you can answer that question definitively, and additionally, I don't know how much of it will get in, but later on, I mean, these charges were from a couple of years ago, and during the divorce proceedings, the kids say that the mom actually encouraged them to lie on her behalf, and that they feared that maybe she put something in their drink, or that she would have a problem, he would have a problem, they would have problems if they did not cooperate with the mom. And so I don't know how much of that will actually get in, but it certainly is going to put her in a bad light. But there is a clear motive, there's a clear why that the prosecutors can use to really fit their case very nicely.
You brought up something interesting with the kids too, because I'm sure, and honestly, a lot of the cases I cover on Scandal, children are a huge point of contention when there's some sort of divorce, because usually both parents want full custody. I mean, not every time, but on the cases that I cover here on my show, that's usually what happens. And then to have investigators speak with the kids, I believe it was the LA Times that reported the daughter went to her school therapist and said, I was nervous my mom was going to poison me. She kind of coerced me or trained me in things to say. Now, these are all allegations, but would that be really important to hear more from the daughter, the other children about, if they were in fear of their lives and being poisoned by the mom too?
Well, I mean, if I'm the defense, I'm certainly going to argue that it's more prejudicial than it is probative, and so that it shouldn't come in. And does it figure into the matter at hand in terms of whether or not she's actually guilty of committing the crime for which she is accused as it pertains to the husband? There's an argument that it doesn't, but in a sentencing phase, I think that could possibly come in because, a lot of times somebody gets convicted, they're now contrite, they're now, regretting, I'm really sorry and I want to take responsibility. Oh, do you? And so then there is a potential for it to bear on some things later. I don't know if it gets into evidence, however, because, of course, the defense is certainly going to argue that it's more prejudicial.
Let's talk about the defense, because this is something you brought up as well. And this was really, really interesting to me. So essentially what the defendant is saying in all of this is, yeah, there was Drano. Yeah, okay, I poured it into a cup, but we had this problem with ants, with insects in our kitchen. And actually my husband told me, Drano is usually pretty helpful with that. So of course I pour it into a cup to get rid of the ants in the.
What the hell do Drano got to do with being poisoned in the tea? Shouldn't you be able to taste that shit? Like, come on now.
The kitchen. Interesting defense. What do you make of it?
Well, I tell you, I mean, I don't know what you say when they have you dead to rights on film. You got to come up with something. So what she said is that, yeah, we use this for the ants, and we do it. We put the Drano in the lemonade somehow. It's not just
Drano in a lemonade? Do you know how crazy that sound, bro? That's literally food poisoning. That is crazy.
Drano down the drain. It's not like, Raid or something that a lot of people would use. Frankly, back with full disclosure, back when I was little, Easy Off, the oven cleaner, was a little bit more powerful even than the Raid was, okay? But it never made it in anybody's drink, right? So she's going to have some trouble with that. But also, there's going to be testimony that his symptoms weren't consistent with him drinking Drano. It's actually consistent with acid reflux. So that's going to be interesting as well. And I don't know how much that necessarily helps, because if there's intention for her to try to hurt him, then, that doesn't necessarily absolve her. But it's certainly a creative defense.
I mean, I guess they have to put forth some form of defense, especially when you pointed out that we have these videos, these images of her pouring the Drano. It's really hard to combat if we have that on camera. So it's an interesting defense at the very least. However, I'm wondering about if the prosecution may have a stronger case here, just in the way of premeditation too, because this allegedly happened on multiple instances. So I would argue, okay, if she did it one time, she would have extra time to go through and think, maybe that was the wrong choice. I probably shouldn't have done it, etc. Not do it 2, 3, how many ever times she's accused of doing it. What do you think about the premeditation in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty strong, right? If you do it, to your point, you do something once, maybe you can explain it away as this horrible accident. But each time, you get the Drano out and you pour it into a regular cup. I mean,
right.
Anytime you do something like that, you don't pour Drano into a regular cup any more than you pour alcohol into a regular cup, and those types of things, so that you make sure that there's a separation. And it's a little bit of a different thing, but at home, I'm very old-fashioned. I clean my tennis shoes with a toothbrush. I separate the toothbrush and put it in the washing section. I don't have it in the drawer with my other toothbrushes, right? I do things to make sure that there's separation. And so to actually use an instrumentality that's in the kitchen, cups get drunk out of in the kitchen. You don't have a cup with something else other than something that can be drank in the kitchen. If you have it in the laundry room, sitting up, where kids couldn't get to it. By the way, you got to protect it from kids. Kids shouldn't be looking and walking in a room and saying, "Oh my God, I'm thirsty." Right? There are things that you do on purpose to make sure that you don't get to certain things, that there's delineation. The idea that several times this happened and there was no delineation, and therefore there's this huge, massive, unintentional thing because we were just trying to kill the ants by using a regular cup to pour Drano in with lemonade, and somehow it makes it into your husband's tea. I mean, it's going to be incredulous, and they run the risk of insulting the jury's intelligence.
As you're going through all of this, I'm thinking we have separate toothbrushes for our laundry, for stuff that we do in the kitchen. Even the cup that we use to wash my dog, in the bathtub, that doesn't go anywhere near anything I'm drinking. Right. And I'm sure that jurors are going to relate to all of this too, right? You specifically separate these things because you don't want to ingest any of that, right. Even if it's like water from washing your dog. Ew, yep. Nobody wants that, let alone Drano.
Right.
The jury, you brought that up. That's very interesting because I'm sure they're going to be thinking about all of those things. And as you pointed out, these allegations happened several years ago. Charges are filed. We're going to go to trial. However, in the final hour, things kind of get switched up a bit because when a key witness is supposed to testify, their schedule doesn't allow it. Can you explain all of this to me, why the charges would be dismissed if they're just going to be refiled? I mean, would that witness really be that important?
Well, first of all, it sounds like the witness is going to be important. They're a vital witness, so much so that for the time being, what they're going to do is they'll file a motion to dismiss the case. And, each case is different, but typically speaking, you're dealing with a misdemeanor case, you have a certain period of time to bring the case back. If you're dealing with a felony case, you can bring the case back as long as you're not done with the statute of limitations. And so basically, they're going to do the technicality of dismissing the case and then refiling it. At least that's what they're saying that they're going to do. Now, meanwhile, back at the ranch, I don't know if there's any conversations going on in the backdrop here where this woman is like, listen, this is ultimately going to be a problem. I don't know that you're going to beat this case, or if any of those discussions happen. So I'm not sure how long it's going to be continued, etc. But I wouldn't be surprised if there were some conversations in the meantime, because they really seem to have her dead to rights. But technically speaking, it's not unusual for a DA, for one reason or another, to dismiss a case for the time being, because you're supposed to answer ready for trial on trial day. So something obviously unfortunate and unforeseen has happened where a key witness can't be a part of it. And so there's a dismissal for the time being, but the case can still be brought back.
You explained this a little bit, but I want to ask just for a bit more clarification. When I'm thinking about, being charged again for similar charges, of course, I always think of double jeopardy, but that's in relation to a conviction, right? I mean, if these charges were dropped, they can be brought again because she never was actually tried for them.
Right, exactly. You can refile before you get across a certain threshold. Now, of course, you can't go to trial, lose a trial, and say, wait, let's try him for something else using the same facts. Let's get in front of another judge. Let's forum shop. You can't do that. Once you cross that threshold where there has been a decision, or you've gone to, you did your presentation of evidence, the court moved, the defense moved for judgment, basically saying, hey, they didn't make a presentation that this is enough, and the judge agrees, then jeopardy would attach, so you couldn't come back. But they hadn't crossed the threshold here, so theoretically they could bring the case back because they haven't gone all the way yet.
What about the right to a speedy trial? I know that can obviously be waived and everything, but all of these allegations are dating back a couple of years. Would that affect anything here?
Probably not, because most of the time, as things get continued, particularly in a criminal matter, the sides are agreeing to continue. It's not unusual for a defendant to waive the right to speedy trial because, among other things, it gives them more time to prepare. So, there's a discovery process, there's X, Y, or Z that's going on. The other thing is she's been on the street this whole time. I think she's got $50,000 bail. Mm-hmm. So, life has kind of gone on, so it's kind of okay. More time actually gets everyone more prepared. So, so that's not going to be an issue from a timing standpoint, because to this point they've probably agreed to the continuances, or the judge has said, okay, we have to come back, we're not ready for X or Y or Z. Not sure when the preliminary hearing, how quickly the pre-hearings were, and those types of things. So sometimes the wheels of justice move a little bit slower, but what that does is that just gives everybody more time to prepare. So more often than not, the parties are going to be agreeing to things like that, particularly if someone is out of jail and out of custody.
To your point, if I'm her and I'm released right now on bail or bond, okay, let's push it off a little longer. I don't want to have to be faced up against, the worst of the worst, which is prison time here. My last question for you, Joe, though, is what are your thoughts looking ahead? Do you have any sort of theory, or could you theorize rather, about a timetable for any sort of refiling, or what you expect for the outcome of the case?
Well, as it pertains to the timing, not sure, because a lot of times it's going to have to do with the judge's schedule. Assuming it's the same judge, not sure how far back things are getting put on the criminal side. Do they get all the way back in the back of the line again, or do they get more towards the front, subject to scheduling and things like that? Not sure about that. As it pertains to the prospects, I think that they've got a pretty good chance to convict her here, because really you're going to have to believe her. I'll give you 10-1. She's got to get on the stand in this case. She doesn't have. She has the right not to self-incriminate, but she's going to get on the stand. She's got some explaining to do. She's going to get eviscerated, probably, and the defense is going to have to make some kind of claim that despite the fact that you don't like her, for this reason or that reason or that reason, the blow should be lessened, if not acquittal entirely. But I think that in this particular instance, assuming the prosecution makes the presentation that it wants to, I think that they've got a pretty good chance to convict her here, because it just undermines every notion of common sense that this woman accidentally poisoned her husband on camera several times.
It's tough to believe, isn't it? And I mean, if you're right about her taking the stand, that's some testimony that I'm going to want to see. We all are going to want to hear some sort of explanation in all of this. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. For today, though, Joe Richardson, thank you for coming on Scandal with us and walking us through the case.
Good seeing you, Sierra, like always.
That's where today's scandal leaves us for now. For the latest updates in this case and all things in the world of true crime, make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you want to connect with me personally, you can find me on social media at Sierra Gillespie, and you can send messages our way too. Our email tip line is scandal@lawandcrime.com. Thanks for watching today's episode of Scandal. As always, I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.
Alright, if y'all enjoyed that video, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on that bell. And we out.